I don't know. Can't think of a good quip to open it with, so. Yay. Starman!
That's what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to Vertigo Voices. I'm Colby.
And I'm Sophia.
That was Garbage, covering David Bowie's Starman.
Very nice cover.
Garbage is an essential 90s band. Starman's an essential 90s comic.
There you go.
Look, I don't have to explain myself to you. I think that fit. We're back at it again, talking about my fucking favorite comic of all time, Starman, which isn't actually a Vertigo comic, but there's a lot of connections to Vertigo. It had a tie-in with Sandman Mystery Theater, which I mentioned before, and a really cool tie-in where Sandman popped into Starman and Starman popped into Sandman. The two crossovers didn't actually connect. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't have to read one to get the other, but if you read both, then it's like a more complete story. It's really cool. So anyway, we're talking about Starman. This is the 90s series, spun out of Zero Hour, created by James Robinson and Tony Harris. Two greats. Oh, before that, Colby has issues?
A lot of issues.
I don't know. I gotta rant. I mean, this is just Starman shit. This is just what I grabbed. I haven't really bought much new stuff lately. I mean, I've been buying my regular books, but I've just been tracking down a shitload of the old Showcase comics from the 90s. Yeah. Showcase 93, Showcase 94, 95, and 96. These were all 12-issue series of those respective years that just focused on different DC characters. And in my Starman reread right now, I realized that there's an issue of Showcase focusing on the Shade that I did not have. So I bought it on eBay the other day. And now I've actually got the complete Starman.
All right, then. Your collection is complete. Huh?
Yeah. Other than that, I do have a Sophia Has Issues. So, you and I both have birthdays coming up soon. Yes. Because mine's the 4th of September, and yours is a few days later.
Yeah, 7th.
7th, yeah, something like that. So anyway, happy early birthday.
Ah, cool.
I don't know if you have that or not.
I don't, no. Okay. Well, thank you so much. For those of you listening, it's the beginning of tomorrow, Starman.
It's the first issue.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Issue 0, I guess. They didn't do number 1. This is a 0 hour. Whatever. Everything had to be a 0.
This is actually really cool because during our conversation, we've been texting back and forth about Starman. I've been thinking about collection of comics a lot. And one of the reasons I had to buy the one of the reasons most of my comic collections now is compendiums is because when I was a kid, I did not take care of comic books for shit. Yeah. I took them everywhere. I packed them everywhere. I read them until they fell apart. So I no longer... It's very, very few comics that I have a single issue of that are actually left over from any part of my youth. Yeah. So that includes Starman. So
a good chunk of mine were original, but I don't know. I didn't come to Starman early. Because I was, 93, so I was 10 when this started, maybe?
Yeah, probably.
And I don't know, I came to it after being going for a few years. But regardless, good series, and there you go, you can start from 0 and collect the whole series now in singles.
Start again. Thank you.
I don't really have any good stories lately. For those who come for my fucking... wild stories. I don't have any good ones these days.
You went to a concert, Liam's first concert.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we went to go see MC Chris last night. My kid's first ever concert. He had a fucking blast.
Good.
Dancing around. MC Chris. So he and I were just right up front. MC Chris made fun of Liam at one point and said something about how he farted. Liam thought that was fucking hilarious. He commented also that Liam screamed so loud after one song that he thought his head was going to explode, so that's pretty cool. He called me Zartan.
Why?
he looked at me and he was like, all right, take it easy, Zartan. And then, like, the crowd was kind of, like, quiet. He's like, did anyone get that? He was like, that was a Generation X test. He looks like Zartan's mask.
Oh, well, okay.
Zartan from G.I. Joe comes with a fake mask that, whatever, like, it's a little that mask right there.
Yeah.
And I was like, even me, I'm like, you're kind of reaching, but I get it.
Sure, yeah. There's a slight resemblance. All right, so it was a grand time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The two opening bands were great, too. It was a local band called the Pink Sox. It was like emo pop punk from like the early 2000s. That was their vibe. It was really good.
Oh, right on.
And then after them was this husband and wife duo called Crunkwitch that was like 80s inspired techno dubstep.
Really? Oh.
And then MC Chris. It was a very interesting mix of music of the night. And it was fucking great. The two openers played for about half an hour each, and then MC Chris played for, I don't know, it was like 2 hours or so. It was a great show. Did an encore. Encore was interrupted by just some woman just fucking dying, I guess. I don't know. Some woman just collapsed at the back,
Oh,
and the security had to get her out. I don't know. She's probably just very drunk. But at the end of it, because like, and MC Chris just went silent, and we all just watched as they got her out. And then he was like, wow, that was pretty cool. Hey, you guys all saw me save that woman. Like, thank God that I knew CPR and was able to save her, and then just stand up here silently on the microphone like a child that was frightened.
I don't know if I'd do anything different, so yeah.
I'm sure she's fine.
All right, we'll go with that.
Yeah, that's my fourth MC Chris show. And it was a lot of fun. I've seen him twice in Seattle, twice here in Spokane. Oh, yeah, once with you. What was that, 2019 when he was last here. My friend Mark came to, the one that we all went to.
Is that the Big Dipper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Big Dipper. It was a fucking packed house, too. Like, it was sold out, which was pretty cool to see. And last time we saw him was 2019. He was going through a divorce. He was kind of in a bad place. And he put on a good show, but like, he was very obviously, like, he was just in a shitty mood. Like, he didn't want to be there. And this last night, he was way, way more, like, into the crowd, way more just, like, happy.
Nice. Good deal. In a better place.
Yeah, exactly. It was fun. Yeah, other than that, I don't know. Last party I went to, you were there, too, so you don't... You like, none of my stories will be new. And it was, I don't know, that was kind of a boring party for me. I didn't get assaulted or propositioned by anyone.
No old ladies tried to lure you into their house?
Yeah, exactly, that either. Jess and I went on a mini adventure, but it wasn't much. We just came here, for fuck's sake.
She got to put on the transmit glasses.
Yeah, exactly. I got a picture of my friend Jess wearing my spider glasses. Other than that, I don't know, man. It's been weird. Been in a weird mood the last few weeks, months, however long it's been since we last recorded.
Been at least a month, right? I feel like somewhere in there.
A little over, I think, or maybe about. Who the fuck cares? Jesus Christ, it doesn't matter. It's been a while though. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have much.
Well, no one is. Pardon me, I didn't mean to interrupt your trail. No, I was going to say, no one's waiting for the end of the story at all, but I found the stray cat and got it out of my apartment.
The what? Oh! Okay, you provided zero context to people listening. Yes. I know that story, but no one else does. Jesus Christ, man. There's a beginning, middle, and end, rising action, climax, falling. You know how to tell a story, right?
You'd think I would, having written for a living, but... No, like our friend Colby here, my apartment has no heating and cooling system. So throughout the day and then most of the night, I just have to leave my doors open, and I only have one set of window that opens, sad single shit stuff. And anyway, short story long, like a couple nights ago, I got back from work. It had been a 12-hour shift. I was tired, yada, yada, yada. Went straight to bed. And then about 1:45, right as I was falling asleep, I heard that blood-curdling scream that only cats can make. And it was coming from inside the house, which scared the shit out of me because one cat was already in the room in her bed. And so...
Of your multiple cats, they were
cats.
already claimed, or they were already spoken for. Or whatever,
accounted
like,
for.
accounted
Yes,
for.
yes. Everyone was present. And so, yeah, I got up, turned on all the lights, walked into the living room. There's my other orange cat, sitting on top of the counter, like, what the fuck? And, I heard this lowing coming from I call it my storage room. It's actually an old projector room that's off the side of my apartment. I live above a movie
I was
theater.
to say, because you live in a movie theater.
I do. And I humble brag about that shit all the time, because it is as cool as it sounds. But yeah, there's a fucking cat in my apartment somewhere in that storage room. I kittied him, and I tried to lure him out with food, and he just sat back there crying. And so it was late. I was like, I can't deal with this shit right now, so I just shut the door and went back to bed. And then it was, last night, in fact. I came home, door was open, and this big, fluffy, gray son of a bitch just comes zooming down the stairs and right past me, and so I was like, oh, there he goes. Problem solved. J.D. Vance would be proud.
My God, we live different lives.
That we do. But no, in terms of, besides that riveting life story, it's not Vertigo, but it's slightly Vertigo adjacent. I've been having a lot of fun with Distillery. You and I have talked about that new comic book publishing. I've been reading Somna, which is okay. Good covers. Blasphemous, which I love, is awesome. And the one I'm really into that I'm waiting for the next issue is called The Blood Brothers' Mother. It's by Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Riso, the same guys who did 100 Bullets.
Yeah, Hellblazer.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. It's your typical Western so far, but it's pretty intense in that our protagonists are literally children, and there's all of this violence that's going on around them as they try to go and save their mother from a ruthless old boyfriend who came and killed their stepdad and took her away. But yeah, I'm really into it. I was supposed to have issue number 2 coming in, but unfortunately, Merlin Comics, or one of our local comic shops, called me and said that Distillery is now partnered with a different distributor or some such thing that Merlin can't buy from.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm like, come on, Distillery.
I'm pretty sure they have it at the comic shop.
That's a good point. I need to go there and check it out. But anyway, yes, if you love comics and you get a chance, there's a lot of fun, interesting stuff happening at Distillery, I think.
One thing I guess that happened, that is somewhat relevant to the show. I was on the radio last week before.
Yes.
And I was on a radio show called People Talk with the host Chris R. And he had me on just to talk about comics. So I actually brought up Starman because that's what I'm reading right now. And we just talked about, I don't know, a lot of comic shit, but Vertigo in general. And I brought up the show a little bit and talked about my love for Vertigo comics and hopefully got some new readers, or hopefully got some new listeners as a result. So if you're listening to this because of People Talk, I can say fuck now. Couldn't say that on the radio, but I can say fuck now. So get your fucking ears ready, fuckface.
You were very professional on that interview. And that was live, too, wasn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah. I've been on the radio a few times. I know how to not say fuck. I can turn it off.
Well, no. I didn't mean in terms of swearing. It's just you would have passed the Toastmasters test like we were talking about.
Yeah. Like I said, I've been on the radio a few times, and when it's live like that, my mind doesn't think about it doesn't think about filler words. I just snap into teacher mode. Because again, I used to be a teacher, and you can't show weakness in front of kids. They'll fucking tear you apart. So
you must be strong.
Yeah. So I just snap into teacher mode. I'm like, all right, no swearing and no stumbling. Just go. It's like stage health. Have you ever heard the term stage health?
No.
I know Patton Oswalt's talked about it in his stand-up before, but it's like when if you're sick, but you've got a live performance of some kind. Once you step onto stage, your body will just say, all right, you got to get through this. And it's called stage health. You'll just work through what you need to, and then you step off stage and just fucking collapse or shit your pants or whatever. It's like Patton Oswalt has this whole bit about having like a stomach flu and getting up on stage, and he goes, I grabbed the mic because I opened my mouth and like my stage health just disappeared. My body was just like, fuck you, you're on your own. And he said that he did like, I don't know, a couple minutes of stand-up and just said, thank you, walked off stage, and he goes, and I begin to gently shit my pants.
Oh, poor man. That's terrifying.
So anyway, yeah, like stage health works for that too. It just keeps me from muttering and mumbling while I'm in a recording studio, I guess. But yeah, it was fun. It was on KYRS. If anyone is interested in listening, you can go to kyrs.org, go to their archive, select the show People Talk, and the episode from July 29th, 2024, obviously, for those listening in 20 years. But anyway, it was fun.
It was fun.
We'll see. I might be on it again. Chris and I have talked about a few other topics to have me on. He actually did an industry night the week after, and he first wanted me to come in, and then he was like, just call. And he had these two bartenders on the show with him. He's like, call in. He's like, you're not a bartender, but it's like you're kind of a part of the industry. I'm a fixture for a few different bars in town, which I don't know what that says about me, but sure. And I was like, I'm not going to call. He's like, please call in. Like, as the show was going, he was texting me, like, call in. I was like, I'm not going to call. He's like, just please. I was like, dude, all of my stories about going to bars are not fit for the radio. I was like, plus, you've got two bartenders on. With my history, I'll just be flirting with them, like, on the phone. So it would be better for your show if I did not call.
Like, trust me. So you did not contribute to that particular episode?
Not, no.
Okay.
So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe in a few weeks. Like I said, we've talked about some other topics that would be fun to discuss. Chris is all about like 80s horror and movies and VHS and whatnot. And I'm a movie collector, so I'm sure we've got plenty to talk about.
I feel like, I know we're going down a different rabbit hole here, but I feel like this year has been a pretty good year for horror.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I've seen a fair amount. I saw Long Legs not too long ago. It was pretty good.
Yeah, you like that?
One of the better Oz Perkins movies. We've discussed Oz Perkins on the show before.
We have.
And my general distaste for his style, just that fucking slow. Like, yeah, I get it. I know that there's a scare coming. You're not building tension. You're just making me bored.
And in retrospect, I think you said this, and I came around on it because I really liked. I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House.
Fuck, I hate that title.
I like that title. I wish I had thought of it for a short story. One of the most frustrating things about him is that he is more about reference than he is about substance. You can see where he's inspired by a lot of cinema, which is cool, don't get me wrong, but there is times I feel like, okay, you should be less showing us your movie trivia knowledge and more invested in your actual story.
Yeah, this ain't a fucking bar trivia game. Like, it's a movie. Tell your story. I overall liked Gretel and Hansel, that movie that he did.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was okay. Or, I don't know. It had some very strong visuals. Fell a little flat in certain areas for me. But overall, I liked that one. But I actually really enjoyed Long Legs. The more I think about it, it's propelled a little bit better than his other movies. Nicolas Cage is great in it. The whole cast is really good. And it's a much, I think, overall creepier movie. It's not all that gory. And it feels a little bit like Twin Peaks. There's a very Twin Peaks-ness to it. Which I think, if I recall, I believe it's set in the Pacific Northwest, so that makes sense. I just watched a YouTube video not too long ago about horror in the Pacific Northwest and how connected the Pacific Northwest is with horror and kind of why. Specifically Washington.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I'm pretty sure I saved that exact same video to my watch later list. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a cool video. Oregon, yeah, so it is set in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
I thought so. I also just played a pseudo-horror video game called Gone Home. That's set in Oregon as well.
Oh, was it good?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's just a walking simulator. It's a good game. Anyway, yeah, Long Legs is good. Other horror, I don't know. Has there been any much horror this year? I can't keep track. I watch shit streaming, I watch it in theaters, and I buy DVDs, so I can't... Unless I'm seeing it in the theater, I can't tell how new it is anymore.
Of course, you would ask, and I would forget. I'm trying to remember... Well, I don't know if you liked it. I liked Immaculate. I can see the problem.
I haven't seen it.
I can see the problem people have with it, and it does have a lot of problems, but there was enough just gory wackiness and pretty imagery to make me
That came
interested.
out around the time as another horror movie, right?
It did. There was a lot of compare and contrast between the two.
Well, no, I mean, I think it was compared often with The Omen, the new Omen movie.
Which I haven't seen.
But I haven't seen it either. But it came out at the same time as another horror movie, and I can't remember what it was. I don't know. My interest in this topic is waning significantly now. So
Moving on.
yeah, so I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty for us to talk about if I were to go on that show again. But anyway, let's talk about fucking Starman. Not fucking Starman, but just Starman.
Yes.
So
The reason we're here.
yeah, so this is a character with a lot of pedigree because Starman originally dates back to the golden age of comics. Back in the 90s, DC went through this big phase of revamping and replacing characters, like focusing on their legacy, which is something that DC's always done, going back to the Silver Age of comics when they brought in, like, you know, Barry Allen isn't the original Flash. Hal Jordan isn't the original Green Lantern.
Right.
What's his name? Fucking Ray Palmer isn't the original Atom. These are all legacy characters, which is something that I think is cool that DC has embraced so early. It's like Marvel, you're never going to get rid of Bruce Banner. You're never going to get rid of fucking Captain America. What's his name? Steve Rogers. They'll try, but they never really will, you know. So I always think it's cool that DC has tried that. But in the 90s, they went through this wave of introducing new legacy characters that didn't really stick. Like there was Connor Hawke, who took over for Green Arrow, and they brought back Green Arrow. There's Kyle Rayner, who took over for Green Lantern, and then they brought back Green Lantern. And they killed off Superman and brought him back. They killed off Batman and brought him back. And so there was this wave of those revamps, but then there was Starman, which did that and then like stuck like gangbusters. Because Starman's a character, again, he started in the 40s as Ted Knight. Then there was a version in the 1950s. It was just Batman dressed like Starman. I don't know, that was a weird story. Then in the 70s, there was another Starman. And there was in the 80s, there was another one for Crisis on Infinite Earths. And in the late 80s, there was another one, Will Payton. And then there was an issue of that Starman where there was another one. And so, I don't know, there's a character that doesn't have a lot of like connection with audiences. So when James Robinson revamped him for Zero Hour, I don't think there was a lot of like interest in the character overall, just because the character keeps changing. And other than the Golden Age version, there's not much connection with any of them. So he created a character that's the son of the original, who is like a junk dealer. Owns an antique store, doesn't like superheroes, doesn't want to be a superhero, like thinks they're dumb and dorky and all that shit, and then is forced to become one. And very interesting character study, among other things. Ran for a little over 80 issues, plus a few spin-offs, plus a few other random appearances, but a very cohesive, full story, like not a, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Not the kind of book that you can just pick up a random issue.
Right.
You gotta read the whole saga.
Yes.
It's fucking great.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking before about why he's one of your favorite characters. I know people who listen to the show probably connect you with John Constantine, but
Yeah, I've got a lot of proxy characters.
we'll talk a little bit more about why you relate to Jack Nicholson.
Well, I've always related to this. So I saw this, or I started reading Starman probably in about 98 when I was in middle school. It was around the time that I told a story on the radio where I was kind of getting over comic books at that time in my life, and I kind of stopped caring about Superman and Batman and, you know, tights and flights and all that. And then I stumbled upon Starman, and I remember checking out the first volume, Sins of the Father, from the library in Walla Walla, and reading that and just being kind of blown away by it. I'm like, oh, it's a superhero comic, but it's about characters and it's about personality and internal turmoil and whatnot. Like, the art is gorgeous, but the action is almost secondary to just interesting characters.
Right.
And James Robinson and Tony Harris created a really, like, well-developed world. Like, Opal City, the city that they created, like, I can tell you who founded it. Ellsworth Burnley. And that's not, I mean, I think it might be said in the comic at one point, like somebody just says that. But if you look at, in the Secret Files and Origins, Starman #1, if you look, there's a whole layout of Opal City. And you can see Burnley Park in the middle of it. And there's one issue where they fly past an Ellsworth Burnley statue. Like, it's just in the background, you know? Like, that kind of diegetic storytelling is really interesting to me. And Starman's really good at that. And just, again, the character personalities, the characters that were created. There's Jack Knight, the prodigal son who kind of rejects his father's life. Mm-hmm. There's Ted Knight, the dad who is kind of obsessed with his work to the point where it caused him to have a nervous breakdown earlier in life. There's David Knight, the selfish hero, air quotes, who wants to follow in his father's footsteps, even though he shouldn't. Mm-hmm. And then there's so many more interesting characters outside of that, like the Shade, the questioner, the immortal of questionable character.
Very much.
Yeah. The O'Dares, the weird little Irish cops that populate the city, and Solomon Grundy, Michael Thomas, fucking Sadie Falk, Charity. Like, there's just so many cool characters in this book, and I love that. And the city is a character as well.
Yes.
I said, actually, let me see in my notes, issue 4. So issue 4 has a shot of Opal City in it that feels like we were talking about with Terminal City.
Yeah.
Like, you can just feel the personality of the city in that shot. Just those weird Art Deco spires, and I don't know. This book is 100% of the reason why I love Art Deco architecture so much. Mm-hmm. And Tony Harris even incorporates Art Deco into the layout of the panels.
Right.
And that gets more noticeable the more he works on the book. But yeah, I love that. I love this city. I love the look of everything in this book, on top of the storytelling.
That's a good point. Opal City, to me, feels like a city I would actually want to visit.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, because Gotham City is a character too, but just from the way that it's drawn, and I mean, it's fascinating, and it's got that noir dark edge that I think is really cool to look at, but just from the way it's described and portrayed, like, who the hell would want to go there?
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to live in Gotham. And I also don't really want to live in Metropolis, because, like, you know, it's like a technological marvel, but there's still Superman. And when you live in a city with Superman, you're going to be a target.
Right.
You know, like, at some point, Parasite's going to suck the life out of me so he can beat up Superman.
Yes, yes. And I'm sure there's a comic book enthusiast out there who loves Superman who will be like, well, actually, Sophia, an issue such and such. But I can't remember, like, of course it's well drawn. Metropolis is always well drawn, but the only big landmark I can think of is the Daily Planet.
There's a Daily Planet. There's, like, the Lex Tower.
Oh, Lex Tower.
Back in the 90s, it always looked like a big L. I
Yes.
really like that design.
That's right.
And then there's the park with Superman. It's got the big bronze statue of Superman with an eagle on his arm. I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know if that's still around anymore. That's just all 90s shit that I remember. But yeah, I mean, and then like Gotham. Gotham has, like, Ace Chemicals and the Monarch? The theater that
Bruce's
Bruce
parents
went
died
to.
at, yeah.
And then, like, Wayne Tower or whatever. But, like, yeah, those two cities are far more fluid. You know,
Yes.
They change with the writer, they change with the time, they change with the issue to issue or whatever. But Opal like has a consistency to it that makes it just feel real. And you know, I know that Opal City is located in Turk County. You know, like, formerly dead Turk County, but they changed the name.
Yes.
And you know, like, oh well, there's the big city, but you know, if you want to get to the good stuff, you have to go to the alleys. You know, like where Jack's shop is. You know, Knight's Pass. You gotta do some do some haggling with the shop dealers there, and then pop into Charity's fortune shop, and she'll read your palm, like
right, kind of off the beaten path.
Yeah, and I love that fucking personality. I've so wanted to like live in a city where I could like have that. I remember reading this as a kid, growing up in Walla Walla, Washington, which isn't a bad city, but it's not like a city. It's not a metropolis. It's a town, and it's got a really cool main street and a great like. It's got a good vibe that feels a little Opalish like that. But I remember being in like middle school and just being like, I wish there was skyscrapers around me. I wish I lived in Opal City. And in Spokane, Spokane has a interesting amount of Art Deco buildings.
Yes.
And like bridges, like the Monroe Bridge here in Spokane reminds me of that big bridge in Opal.
Oh yeah.
And like we've got some cool buildings like the Dresden over on Monroe, and then the building that the Satellite is in is a very Art Deco inspired building. So I guess we're kind of lucky in that regard that I ended up in a city that does have some Art Deco to it. I'd like to say that was the reason, but it's not. It's just coincidence. I used to live in a really cool like Art Deco-ish building too called the Metropole downtown.
Oh, here in Spokane?
Yeah.
Is it still there?
Yeah. That word, just the Metropole, that sounds like an Art Deco word.
It does. Yes. It sounds like it was built in the 30s, maybe the 40s, but yeah, we are lucky in that. And it's a nice coincidence. It's a nice coincidence. We'll take it.
But yeah, this book is fucking fantastic. I love Art Deco. Let's see, what else are my notes here? Oh yeah, one thing about this character, Jack Knight, the titular Starman, or I guess one of the titular Starmen, he's always almost adapted. He's never actually been in any expanded media, but he always gets real close. And for some reason, 2 of the times that he, air quotes, has shown up in shows, he's been changed to Sylvester Pemberton, which is a different comic book character named Skyman, also the Star-Spangled Kid. So we watched it actually, Smallville, Absolute Justice.
Oh yeah.
So
okay. Yeah.
Star-Spangled Kid shows up in that, wearing a leather jacket and holding Jack's Star Rod.
Right.
And like that's fucking. It's clearly supposed to be Jack Knight.
It's Starman.
Yeah. But they don't call him Starman. And then the same thing in Stargirl, the TV series. Sylvester Pemberton is Starman in that. He gets killed, and his cosmic staff moves on to Stargirl.
Right.
On the comic, Jack just gives it to her. He also shows up later in the series wearing a leather jacket and like not dead. But yeah, it's just funny how he's always like this close. There was also a Starman TV series proposed in the early 2000s. Never happened. There was like a Machinima series probably 5 to 10 years ago that never happened. So it's always like this close, and then he doesn't. James Robinson actually is one of the producers on Stargirl, the TV series. Yeah, so there's actually quite a bit of the lore of the Golden Age and Starman and all that shows up in that series. And the Shade is in the 2nd season, looking exactly like the Shade in the comic.
Is that Patrick Dunn? No.
Okay. His name is, I think he's a British actor. Let's see. Dickie Swift. Oh, you dildo. Jonathan Cake. Yeah, all right. Yeah. He looks a lot like the Shade. Yeah, I'm glad that they...
Good casting.
Yeah, the Shade was also in an episode of The Flash.
Oh, was he?
Looking nothing like this. Hold on. No, that's not the Shade. Fuck you.
I was gonna say that looks nothing like the Shade.
I mean, the version that's actually on the... That's Dr. Alchemy. Why are they showing him? The Shade. The Flash. He's a very uninteresting looking character on The Flash. That's so weird that I can't find a single picture of him, though. The Mist was also on The Flash. Played by Anthony Carrigan. This is the guy that is going to play Metamorpho in Superman.
Oh, yeah?
The new Superman movie.
He's got the look.
Yeah, he looks exactly like Metamorpho. But anyway, yeah, he was on... So, like, I don't know, a few of these characters have been adapted before. Also, The Shade, The Mist, maybe a couple other Starman characters showed up on the animated series Young Justice.
Oh.
And in fact, one of the most obscure Starman characters also showed up on that show, Bliss. Remember
Really?
Bliss?
Yeah,
He's
but
the circus owner.
yeah. So he's
Yeah, he's in Young Justice.
okay, no, why not?
He had a bunch of metahumans imprisoned. Yeah, here he is on Young Justice, Mr. Bliss.
Wow.
He was a like a metahuman fight promoter or whatever. The Shade also was redesigned for Young Justice, and when he first showed up, I was like, I fucking hate this, because he just looked like this.
Oh.
And then later in the series, he gets his like top hat, and I was like, all right, I accept that look.
Like, okay, we'll go with it. It doesn't miss
Yeah, okay, so this is him originally. He wears like a fucking like, tactical battle suit or whatever. I'm like, I hate that. And then when he finally shows up in costume, I'm like, all right, far better. I agree.
We'll settle for it. Mr. Bliss, doesn't he show up in like episode? 8.
Starman?
Yeah.
He's the guy that owns the circus with all the freaks.
Yes, but I'm trying to remember where.
He's like a demon.
Well, he's an incubus.
Yeah, whatever.
Tomato, tomato. But
A thing that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Let's not get stuck in particulars. But no, I'm trying to think about what issue he does show up in, because I think it's got a cover that I love. It's Jack Knight. He's passed out. He's being held by a tentacle woman. That one, yes, I love that cover.
It was actually the issue before that he first showed up in.
Oh, okay.
That's
okay.
when they had the big fight.
Gotcha.
Yeah, again, so many fucking great characters in this book.
Absolutely. Now, is it true, I've just heard this, is it true that Tony Robinson owns Starman in the same way that...
James Robinson?
James.
Tony Harris.
Tony Harris, God.
They have, they have a certain amount of creator rights for the character.
Right.
Kind of like Neil Gaiman and Sandman. And
Yes.
Yeah. So they... Technically, DC owns all these characters, but they created Jack Knight, and so they own a portion of like his character, or whatever. So he can't really show up in any meaningful way unless DC clears it with them.
That's right.
So at the end of Starman, he retires. He leaves Opal City and moves to San Francisco and hangs up the cosmic rod. But the character has popped in like cameos in a few books here and there. Like he went to Sue Dibney's funeral in Identity Crisis. I think he went to Green Arrow's wedding, but it's just a single image of him, doesn't speak or anything. And he was actually referenced in a new issue of Justice Society just like a few months ago. And technically, he came back. Tony Harris did a cover of Justice Society just a few months back that had Jack front and center, just as a kind of as a joke. Well, not as a joke, but just as like a retailer cover.
Nice.
All the other that's the JSA from the early 2000s, the team that Jack was a part of. Mm-hmm. Like Sand there in his dumbass tactical gear.
Is he wearing a baseball cap?
Yeah. He eventually got a different look, but that was like, really? All right. He only had that look for a few issues.
And they must have been like up against a deadline or something.
That was the early 2000s. They're trying to make him look hip.
Okay. Very Von Dutch. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, Jack has, hey, I fucking have that poster. That's funny. That poster is above my bed. It's Jack Knight and his son, and then the Great Machine from Ex Machina. That poster I actually bought from Tony Harris when I met him, and it was limited to 75.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's commemorates the 20th anniversary of Starman and the 10th anniversary of Ex Machina, both comics that he worked on.
Very exclusive piece of art.
It's I think I have number 13 of 75, if I recall.
Hang on to that one.
Yeah, anyway, so fucking Starman, man. Everyone needs to read this comic. It is a perfect time capsule of the 90s. It is an amazing hero's journey. I completely ignored your question earlier about why I'm so connected to this character. But Jack is a very nostalgic person. Mm-hmm. I have a deep affinity for like art from the past. I mentioned on the radio show, like when I read this in like 8th grade, one of my favorite movies was Bridge Over the River Kwai. And like I don't know, I was a kid that liked old stuff. I felt a deep affinity with Jack because of his love for old stuff. And his kind of like, he was a little bit of an outsider, but he's so fucking cool. And I wanted to be that cool guy too, that didn't really fit into any specific group, that just knew a lot about a lot of different things. And this comic directly informed a lot of my personality moving forward. In a less toxic way than a character like, I don't know, John Constantine.
Not as many as unhealthy tendencies.
Yeah, exactly. Because Jack's not perfect, but he's a very human character, and he's relatable in a way that is, I think, positive, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think, like you were talking about, I mean, earlier, when I read this comic as a kid, it was mostly because, I saw the cover and I was like, oh, that, flying, universal rods, sci-fi, weird villains, that's cool. Rereading it as an adult, there are a lot more emotional beats than there are action scenes.
Yeah.
And I appreciate them more as an adult than I ever did as a kid. But like you were saying, he's a very relatable character. And no offense to the other big ones. I mean, I love Batman. I love Superman, Green Lantern, all wonderful stories, great writers. But, Bruce Wayne is a billionaire. Not relatable to me in that regard. Superman, alien from another planet. Jack Knight is just like, we all know a Jack Knight.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a Jack Knight in everybody's life.
Yeah.
And the fact that he loves secondhand stuff and old things, I mean, that's definitely down my alley as well. And it's interesting how he has such an affinity for the past, for things of the past, and he has all of this knowledge. But at the beginning of the comic, he very much kind of rejects and mocks the history of the legacy from which he comes.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting over the course of the comic to see him. He doesn't necessarily embrace it in the same way his dad did, or definitely not the way his brother David did. He's not very enthusiastic about it, but over the course of the comics, he comes to see the symbolism of it and what it stands for, and has a little bit more respect for it than at the beginning of the book, which I think is a nice commentary on how, you don't have to love our past or your past, whatever. In fact, there's a lot of things not to love. But there's a lot to be said for the people who came before you and did hard shit.
Well, it's the idea of respecting the past, but not like, what's the word? Not repeating it, I guess.
Yes.
And
or revering it.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that, like, at the beginning, Jack is resistant of his heritage just because he lived it, and he's like fucking tired of it. Whereas David revered it so much that he wanted to relive it, and that led to David's death. And then Jack eventually finds a way to, like, respect his past, but not view it with like rose-colored glasses. Like understand the warts and all of history and be better than it. It's like it's the Last Jedi, the thing that everyone fucking hated about the Last. Luke, and he's such an angry old man. Like, his whole point in that movie is that, like, hey, the Jedi had some good ideas, but they were, like, myopic and dumb in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Like, you need to be better than what came before you. You can't just do the things that what came before you did. You always have to be moving forward. You always have to be better than, like, that's why we fucking have offspring. Like, it's evolution.
Yes.
The next generation has to be better than the last. Or else, what are we fucking doing?
Right. It's a radical act of hope.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, Jack eventually gets to that point where he realizes, like, I can't just reject everything about my past, but I can also just, like, what's the word? I can't just fall back on it or whatever, sink back into it. And he becomes his own person, but that's informed by those that came before him. I think it's fucking amazing. And I really love, I love his character. Like, I wrote in my note something about his personality that fucking really hits me. About oftentimes he'll hide what he wants to really say with snark.
Yes.
Or just, eat it. Like, he won't say what he wants to. There's a bit where he, in issue 12, right after he goes to court for murdering the bad guy in the first volume, and he's like sitting with his dad on a bench, and his dad's like, dad's trying to make him feel better. He's like, yeah, you can't change what you are. You simply have to accept them both. And then they sit there, and he's like, you're still Starman, right? And Jack's like, yeah, I'm still Starman. And I'm still... And then he doesn't say anything, but his internal monologue says, proud to be the son of Ted Knight. And like, but he doesn't want to say that, like he feels it. And he's like, what? You're still what? And he's like, still the posing screw up who'll do the best he can. And like, he hides his true intention with snark and sarcasm, which is what I do fucking constantly. So I totally feel Jack on that one.
Intensely relatable.
And then there's also like another thing that I felt hard is that the breakup in issue 17. I've had a breakup that was very similar to that.
Really?
Hold on, let me see if I can. Oh, also issue 12. I love his green suit. What is it? He wears like a green zoot suit. No, sorry. Yeah, fuck. It's like teal. A teal zoot suit, purple shirt, and then a green and yellow tie. It's such a fucking loud outfit. I love it. He looks like a member of Real Big Fish or something. Which that's the second time we've brought up Real Big Fish on the show this year.
Twice in 1 year.
So yeah, in issue 17, it shows Jack in bed and like waking up with his like situationship, Lucy. Mm-hmm. And then she breaks up with him in the morning. And I just love it where she's like, you may be a hero, Jack, but that doesn't make you a nice person. It's like, look, what if we spent the day together? Or maybe you'd like some, I don't know, a little time apart? Because after she's like already kind of told him that she wants to break up. And then it's like, I didn't tell you, but just before you called about getting back together, I went in for a job interview, an art firm. He's like, wow, that's great, like in Midway City. He's like, ooh, that's far. It's like, I have to think about my long-term, Jack. Last night was great, sure, but when I woke up, last night was all it was. And I knew that you and me would never stay together. He goes, is there anything I can say that will change that? It's like, I don't think so. And he goes, all right, well, good luck. And then he lays back in bed and just goes, damn.
Just rip the Band-Aid
right. And I mean, like, I really appreciate that because I've been in relationships like that where I've really liked someone. I've probably been on both sides of that coin, really, more than once. But like when you're with someone and you really like them, and you realize it's not going to work, and then it's like, like when it gets to the end, like, well, what are you going to do? Like, I don't know. Well, I guess good luck. Have a good one. Like, I'm not gonna fucking stand outside with a boombox and flowers, whatever. I'm not gonna beg, and I'm also not gonna be like, oh, like, please come back. Or I'm not gonna wallow in my pain too much because it is what it is. Sometimes breakups aren't messy enough to really feel bad about afterward. It's just it happens. Yeah. My most recent one was like, well, I guess good luck out there.
There you go.
I liked you, but I guess it's run its course. See you later.
No square pegs, round holes type of thing. No, that's and that brings up another good point in that a lot of the human interactions, again, talking about those emotional beats, because there's a lot of 90s comics that are big on melodrama, which I like. One comic that everyone seems to hate now that I have a huge soft spot for is The Death of Superman. So many people seem to dislike that.
Yeah, it's fun. I like it.
But the interactions in Starman, it feels a lot more, like, even though there's all these fantastical things happening, it feels a lot more how people actually interact with each other in a lot of ways.
It's very conversational and less stagey.
Right.
Which I loved. And there's so much in there. So many amazing, quippy conversations between Jack and, like the O'Dares. I fucking love each of the O'Dares. There's Barry, Mason, Matt, Hope, and Clarence. Holy shit, I did that.
You did.
I love how each of those has a very defined personality. It's just these 5 fucking Irish kids that grew up to be cops. And, like, Clarence is the wise older brother that kind of looks over all the younger ones. Matt started as just a piece of shit and then realized the error of his ways. And throughout the series, he's trying to better himself. Hope is kind of a by the book, but very like deeply ingrained with her heritage. Mason, wait, Mason and Barry. Barry is kind of sleazy. He's a womanizer who doesn't really understand like the kind of honor that the rest of the family has. He's just always kind of doing his own thing. And then Mason is the youngest, and he's very quiet, but also like a man of action. Mm-hmm. Like I think when he's properly introduced in the book, he's like getting shot in the shoulder while he's diving sideways and shooting someone. And then he goes to see Charity. Like he gets in a relationship with Charity, and there's a bit where she says something to him like, "Hey, maybe I'll get you to string 5 words together today," and he says like, "Doubt it." And I love the scene where they're introduced. So the O'Dares are introduced. I think it's issue 2 or 3. It's when Ted gets kidnapped.
Yes.
And he, or no.
No.
It's after
the assassination.
Yeah, it's when his
house
lab gets blown up.
Yeah.
And he's in the hospital, and he wakes up in the hospital bed, and the O'Dares are there with Jack, and they're shown in silhouette. And it's like you can see Matt lighting a cigarette, sitting down, and then behind him his 2 brothers are in silhouette, and the only thing you can make out from them is their bright red hair. I just love the way that's portrayed. Like I feel like I can see that in like a movie or something. Like I feel like I can feel the movement of it, the cigarette sparking up and lighting the scene around it. And there's so much of that in this book of like a very cinematic style. I just fucking love it.
That's a good way to describe it, cinematic style. And the side characters really hold up, which can't be said for a lot of stories.
Yeah, okay, so I'm about 55 issues into my reread right now. Plus, I've read all the goddamn tie-in stuff. I said I wasn't gonna, but I did. I got sucked in. This book is too fucking good. And the O'Dares aren't really in it that much. They're probably only in, so far, like 4 issues where they get serious play. And yet, I feel like I know their personalities amazingly already. Same with someone like Sadie Falk, Jack's girlfriend. She doesn't have a lot to do. In fact, their relationship is almost exclusively created or whatever, nurtured in a spin-off, one of the annuals. That shows their the Pulp Heroes annual shows their entirety of their relationship. Before that, like he runs into her at the circus and she's like, "Fuck you!" And then she sees him once at Charity's house, and then they bump into each other on the street again. And then after that, they're just like together. I'm like, what the fuck happened here? When did they get together? And yeah, you find out the whole story in an annual. Again, like her characterization is very strong, and everyone's is. Jack Ted. And Michael, the alien Starman. I think I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like when Michael goes off to space with Jack, issue 44, 45, and he says goodbye to his boyfriend, Tony, that might be the first like gay kiss in a DC comic.
I think it is.
I have no idea if it is or not, but like the timeline, like that was bold back in the day.
Right.
Like,
no, I remember reading that during June. I think you're right.
There's also a gay character in like issue 2 or 3. One of Merritt. Merritt? Is that his name? The guy that has the picture of Dorian Gray posters?
I think so.
He, one of his first victims is like a gay woman who's talking about her girlfriend. And she gets sucked into the poster, and then later Jack and Shade.
Yes. Yeah.
Jack, Shade, and the O'Dares save them all. But like it's like, wow, they're giving this character a lot of backstory. And like, wow, oh, Jesus, she has a girlfriend. Like, that's really interesting to throw that into a mainstream DC book in the early 90s. Like, you didn't see a lot of that.
No, you did not. No, certainly not. And they do a good, I mean, maybe if I had read it when I was older, I might have seen it coming, but I doubt it. But when I read that before, I thought, oh, she's going to be a main character. And then you're like, oh, and she's gone. But it pays off in the end. But there's a lot of that, though. There's, it feels like everyone gets their own little story, maybe even their own little arc. I can't think of a character that I feel is like, well, maybe that's extraneous.
Yeah, no, I mean, this ties together really well. And there's so much fucking foreshadowing that pays off in spades later. Like, there's the whole thing with the posters. That is introduced probably 10 issues before it comes up. You see Michael Thomas in chains, like 5 issues before he shows up. They lay the groundwork for the final arc. Again, probably there's 70 issues separating these. They lay the groundwork for the final arc in essentially like the second or third issue.
Right.
The whole thing about the shade. And there's even a bit where he mispronounces Portrait of Dorian Gray. He says Portrait of Dorian Gray instead of Picture of Dorian Gray. Mm-hmm. And later, like, that's revealed why he says that. There's the whole thing with the Black Pirate. You see him in issue 2. Yeah. And he comes back later continually. He keeps coming back. There's the whole thing about the little talking doll or whatever in the Freak Show. What's his name? Renee. Who says, like, yeah, the bad dwarf took my mind away or whatever. And that comes back in, like, issue 75. Like, it's just, this is so meticulously plotted out and yet also so ingrained in the larger DC universe. It's fucking amazing. And I learned so much about the history of DC Comics because of this book. Mm-hmm. It goes so deep into the 1930s and 40s, the first wave of Golden Age heroes. I have a deep affinity for the JSA because of this book. You know, characters like Hourman and Sentinel and Mr. Terrific. I said Sentinel. That's actually the original Green Lantern. It was a nerd test for anyone listening. If you understood, if you nodded when I said Sentinel, you knew that I was talking about Alan Scott. You're a kid of the 90s.
Welcome.
And anyway, like, all those characters are treated with such reverence in this book. Like, fuck, how could I not love those characters? Now, speaking of that, issue 11. I've talked about this issue on the podcast before, but this is one of my fucking favorite. The Times Past, the one with Ragdoll.
Yeah.
Where they have a flashback to the JSA fighting Ragdoll. I just love that ghastly image of him on the cover, and I love the art in this issue. It's credited to Tony Harris, but it's not. Tony Harris didn't do the art in this issue. It's Matt Smith. Oh. He does a few Times Past issues, and he just has a really cool, weird, blocky style that I love for the JSA. And this, speaking of giving characters personality, in probably 2 pages, this gave Hourman more personality than probably the entirety of the Golden Age. Like, you could probably read every comic from the 30s and 40s and not get as much characterization as you did in these couple pages with Hourman. Because, like, it says, okay, so the setup is Ragdoll, this villain, has an army of henchmen. And they're crossing a bridge to kidnap some kids. I can't remember if the kidnapping plot was these guys too. But Hourman is the only person that stands between them and their goals. So it's just him alone on a bridge waiting for these guys to fight. It says, Rex Tyler had a mask. He chose it, and he stood determined and ready. But he had a problem. To get to the Grail, the Ragdoll's mob had to cross the bridge. There lay the problem. The mob had all night to walk these 40 yards of concrete and steel. Tyler had 1 hour to stop them, because his power only lasts for an hour. Mm-hmm. And he says, come on then, let's get this done. He says, 12 minutes, shows him fighting guys. 27 minutes, 18 seconds. 39 minutes, 45 minutes, 15. 56 minutes, 57, 58, 59. Rex Tyler is one for smiles. Victory smiles, wide and crystal white. Rex feels his heart. The beat of it ebb from drum solo fast back to slow and steady waltz 2-3, waltz 2-3. The night is suddenly cool, in a good way, a nice way, and Rex performs the impossible by making his smile wider still. It feels so good, he thinks, so good to be alive. And I love that contrast within Dr. Midnight saving the twins. Mm. And it says, like, Midnight would smile if he was one for smiling. And say, the saving of innocence, the sweetest feeling. That's just all it says for Dr. Midnight. I fucking I fucking love that guy. Like, the guy that just enjoys saving people or saving the day or whatever. Like, he has a big grin on his face after beating the shit out of an army of psychopaths.
And it's a really good way to establish character in very few pages.
Anyway, Matt Smith is one of the artists on this book that I really liked, who only ever did Times Past stories. He does one of the Shade teaming up with Dr. Fate, which again was a shitload of queuing up for the final arc between the Shade and his enemy Culp. I mentioned the tie-in to Sandman Mystery Theater. There was also a tie-in to the Sandman Mystery Theater sequel called The Sleep of Reason.
Okay.
In issue 30, Diane sends Jack a letter telling her that, Wesley and I are going to be dying soon, so we're kind of going out in a blaze of glory and touring the world. Well, that tour of the world is where Sleep of Reason picks up. It shows them having an adventure in the Middle East. There's a ton of Vertigo connections to this. And also in the letter columns, I didn't bring this up yet, the letter columns of this book are fucking great. It's, for the first chunk of it, James Robinson answers the letters himself. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people bring up the fact that they call this, Vertigo Light. And it comes up quite a bit. Of I really love Vertigo, and I love Starman. It feels like Vertigo Light. Speaking of, the tie-in with Sandman Mystery Theater was called Sand and Stars, and that won an Eisner.
Oh, really?
The biggest award you can have for comic books. So the issue where Jack Knight meets Wesley Dodds won an Eisner. It was best story. I don't know what the award titles are.
But some real prestige.
Yeah, exactly.
Those awards are not purchased or marketed for.
And these are just, I don't know, it's such a good series. Especially when Tony Harris was on art, man. It looked so fucking gorgeous. The artist that came after him, Steve Yoel did some, and Peter Snyenberg? I don't know how to pronounce his name. Snyenberg?
Oh, you would know better than I
don't know. But anyway, they're totally good artists, but there's something about the personality that Tony Harris gives this book that is unparalleled. And I was actually really sad when I got to his final issue. He has a goodbye letter in one of them. That was pretty good. He also credits all of the models he got to play the characters while he would use reference photos for the characters. Because Jack Knight, I don't know if you've ever seen what Tony Harris looks like, but Jack Knight and him share more than a passing resemblance.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think he's posted some of his reference images. Harris. All right, there we go.
Okay, yeah. I see it. Yeah, you can see it. They've got the same nose, practically.
Oh, yeah, there's a good one, too. What is this from? They keep all these images on YouTube. This is from a book.
It is from a book.
I don't know what this book is. Something about the making of Starman? What the fuck? I don't have this. Tony Harris is also an artist that I've met. He's a fucking cool guy. I've mentioned this before in the pod, but he's got a tattoo of the Starman star on his hand, on the back of his hand, and I have a picture of him choking me with that hand. You can see the Starman logo really clear on my neck while he's squeezing the life out of my dumb little face. He also has another tattoo of remember Bobo Benetti? He's introduced in probably issue 30 or so. He's the gangster that gets out of prison.
Oh, okay,
goes
yeah.
to rob the bank.
Yeah.
He and Jack swap stories about tattoos. Well, he has a tattoo of playing cards and swords or whatever. Tony Harris also has that tattoo.
Does he? So a lot of himself in the artwork.
Yeah.
That's cool, though.
And I also his love for Art Deco also obviously shows through. Yeah, Bobo, there's a funny story about Bobo Benetti. He's a new character for the comic, but James Robinson convinced the editor that he was a classic DC character that he was dusting off.
Really?
He's when Bobo Benetti fought Green Lantern and blah, blah, blah. And so the editor then quoted that as being oh yeah, actually Bobo's not new. He's from, and so he's what? And then in a later letter column, he's yeah, so turns out James Robinson pulled a fast one on me, and I look like a fucking idiot. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, James. Well, that's one way to get what you want out of it, right?
Anyway, I don't know. Do we have anything else to say about Starman? I don't want to dig too deep into this because people really need to just fucking read this.
You really do.
The book has been reprinted a few times. There's a few omnibus editions that came out in like 2010 or so. And then there's 2 compendiums, just giant fucking bricks of books.
Yes, they are.
That have the entire series, even the new stuff. Because there was a new Shade series in like 2011 or 2012 or something. And those are in the new compendiums. So there's 2 volumes. They're expensive, but they're fucking worth it because you get, 120 or so issues of some of the best comics you'll ever read with some amazingly cool characters and characterizations and stories and, I don't know, everything. It's just a beautiful time capsule of my favorite era of comics. And this is largely my favorite era of comics because of this book.
Right. I think there's a lot to be said. I heard someone on YouTube, I can't remember who, so forgive me for not crediting, but they described Starman as a quiet epic.
Yeah. I think that's the name of that video, actually, that you're quoting. I'm pretty sure I've seen that. But please read it. We didn't even talk about, like, Jack's staff, the cosmic staff.
Oh, we did.
That's got such a gorgeous design that evolves throughout the series. Like, it starts with just the little one, and then he gets the prototype, and then his dad builds him a new one, and it looks so fucking sweet. Like, I'd love to have one hanging on my wall. So, I don't know, maybe someday.
One thing at a time.
But, yeah, so one thing, we kind of brought this up, because there's been rumblings of Starman coming back as a Black Label book. I don't know 100% if that's going to happen or not, but that would be fucking great. I would absolutely love to see more Jack Knight. There's one story that they wrote that never got published where Jack goes to Japan. It's heavily foreshadowed at the beginning of the series, and that never happens. Mm-hmm. Charity, in like issue 2 or something, gives Jack like a fortune telling where she's like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna fucking go to Japan, and you're gonna meet a pirate, and then like Hawkman's gonna come to Opal, and all this." And like 2 of those things didn't happen.
Well, she's not always 100% accurate.
She comes back later, and she's like, "Oh yeah, Hawkman's like his fucking path is diverged now. He's gonna do something else. So yeah, you're not gonna meet them, but you'll probably meet Captain Marvel, I think." And yeah, that happened. That's just because Hawkman's book was a fucking mess at the time, and they couldn't make the continuity jive with Starman. So yeah, just Captain Marvel instead.
All right, you work with what you've got.
Technically, she just says something about it's like a hero with wings. I think.
Does she?
Yeah, she doesn't say Hawkman, but the art shows Hawkman.
Oh.
So technically, it could still be right because Black Condor ended up being a pretty major character later in the book. It's just that, yeah, right here. See, so there's Japan. Yep. You see Hawkman's mask. She says, you go to the Far East. You're at a burial. There's blessing and needles and paint there, too. None of that happens. You go to space, deep outer space. And a winged man will come to Opal. He knew your father, too. And yet, he didn't. So that's like a joke about... It's supposed to be a reference to Hawkman's reincarnation. It isn't the same Hawkman, but, he knew your father, but he didn't. But it could still work for Black Condor, because Black Condor knew Ted, but the current Black Condor isn't the original. It's like a legacy.
So, yes, options are left open.
Whatever, regardless, I just think that's funny that, like, you dumbass, you got all that wrong. Stupid fuck. Fortune telling's not real.
See? Oh, and, not that this hasn't been brought up before, it's been brought up plenty, but I do find it kind of delicious personally that's like the one part of astrology that maybe you could get behind a Starman symbol.
I love the art of it. I don't fucking give a shit about
astrology.
I know. But it's a gorgeous piece of art.
Well, he references that in the comic book. I really like that. Where he's like, well, okay, so it's astrology, not astronomy. Maybe Dad will approve anyway.
Yeah, it's like I've always been more into astrology than astronomy. In that first issue when he's gearing up, I love the practicality of his costume. Yeah. It's like, it's cold when I'm flying around up in the sky, so I'll put on a leather jacket. And this fucking staff is really bright when I shoot energy, so I'll put on these old welding goggles that I have. Wait, are they flare goggles from World War II? Mm-hmm. Put these on, I love the practicality of it. But there's a bit where he's gearing up, and I read it, and I was like, is that why I say this? But I don't think it is. He grabs the cosmic rod, and he goes, It feels good. Feels right for me. Feels good in my hand, as the actress said to the bishop.
Yeah, I like that.
Like, I say that all the fucking time.
Well, if you have to get a quote from somewhere, you could do worse.
No, I'm pretty sure I got it from The Office, the British Office. One of the characters says that a few times. But.
Well, now that we're talking about quotes, though, you mentioned Boba Benetti. There was something he said that has been bastardized. I've bastardized it through the years, but there's a great quote he has. I always thought it was so funny, but it's something like, "I'm plenty mad at these cupcakes for queering up my gig."
I just read that issue. That's in like issue 45.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's similar to that. It's not exactly what he says, but yeah, he also says in that, like, "You want a piece of me? Well, I come all a mode."
That's right. That's right. He's got great lines.
Yeah.
He does.
He's like stuck in that 1950s, 60s like crooner style in his speech too.
Yeah.
He calls everyone, he calls everyone like cats and I can't remember it. I fucking love that guy.
He's a good character. You guys should check him out.
Yes. So anyway, read Starman. One thing that I've neglected to bring up the last few times that we've done this is our fucking email address. Oh, yes. Please email us at vertigovoices@gmail.com. I keep forgetting about the fact that we have an email. And also, so I've talked to quite a few fans of the show. I have a lot of friends that are always like, "Oh, I totally listen to your show," and I'm like, "No, you fucking don't. Like, I know you don't.
Don't lie to me.
I can see it in your eye that you're hoping I don't ask you any specifics." Like, but I don't know. Maybe there's a chance there. So, if you are a friend of mine and you've listened to the show, either text me or send me a message on Facebook. Or just if you see me in person or whatever. But I just want you to say, "Hand a banana." So I know you listen to the show. And I know you listen to a whole episode, because this is the end. So, friends, I'm putting this out to you. Hand a banana. All right.
And on that note.
And if you don't... you get the reference, Hand Banana? It's from fucking Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I don't know.
Oh, I haven't seen all of Aqua Teen.
I've got it in my mind because I just saw MC Chris. But Hand a
banana. Okay.
Anyway, all right. That's the show. We'll be back whenever, talking about whatever. I don't know. We don't have anything else on my mind to talk about. So, and I'm still reading Starman. I was gonna try to get through all 80 issues, man. I'm only at 54 or whatever. Doing the Adam Strange story now. So I don't know.
You are dedicated. No one can deny.
All right. Well, that's the show. Everyone, go read your books. Fucking email us. Have a good one. Goodbye.
Goodbye.